Hello everyone, it's Randy I, here to reflect on the fact that I am now middle-aged. Yeah, I'm 40. 40! 40! Ah! I'm a middle-aged man. Jesus Christ. I still feel like a 25-year-old. I mean, my body feels like it well, let's be honest, it's not quite the same as it used to be, but I still feel like I have the energy. I remember what it was like to be 25 or to be 18, but 40, man. Aging is a interesting process. I don't feel 40. I don't feel middle-aged, but here I am. I want to do this video today in beautiful Brisbane, Australia, by the way. You can see this beautiful bridge behind me. I want to do this video to talk about what it means to be middle-aged. What does it mean for me? This is just a personal reflection. It could mean different things for different people, but hopefully all of you will get to reach 40 if you have not. And those of you who are past 40, I'm sure you can reflect as well on your life and what it means to age and to become middle-aged, or to become senior, or to become post-senior. It's a crazy process. Oh my God. I mean, I talk to a lot of my friends, and we reminisce, right? When we were in high school, I've become one of those people. I've become one of those back in my day. I've become one of those people. I've become old. As T.S. Eliot would say in the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, I grow old. I grow old. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers road. Dare I eat a peach? The mermaids singing each to each. I grow old, I grow old. So this is it. This is aging. So what does it mean for me? What does aging mean? Well, first of all, your physical appearance changes, right? So I look older than before. Maybe not older. I've been blessed with good genes, but I look at myself in the mirror now, and I'm visibly older. I mean, I see pictures of myself from my 20s, and I don't look the same. I look more innocent, perhaps. I would like to think of myself as being now more stylish. Maybe. I give myself too much credit. But certainly I looked a bit more innocent and certainly younger when I was younger. That's a given. But yeah, you do look older, and that comes with pros and cons, right? My body certainly is not the same, despite how I would like to think of myself. I think I get tired more easily now. My body has certainly become just overall more sensitive to different things. I mean, to give you some examples, when I was 19, I discovered that I was lactose intolerant, or at least I first started experiencing lactose intolerance. So I couldn't digest cheese or milk, butter. I only quite recently discovered that butter is actually dairy, surprisingly. So when I was 19, I could still digest dairy. It gave me a stomach ache, but I could still do it. Now, minute amounts of dairy. Just small, minuscule, microscopic amounts of dairy will cause significant stomach upset for long periods of time. I'm talking like days even. It's incredible. My body has become so sensitive. When the temperature is under about 15 degrees, now I have to wear long johns, which are like a second pair of pants, I guess inside pants if you wear, or long underwear, because I don't know if I'm developing early arthritis symptoms or whatever, but my joints start to feel locked and very uncomfortable anytime below 15 degrees, especially in the winter. It's terrible. I have to wear a second layer underneath in the winter for sure. I've developed certain hearing sensitivities, and this is going to sound weird, and I know you're going to accuse me of saying, you're going to say this maybe is psychosomatic. I find a clear causation between certain sounds and irritation in my ears. Certain sounds, especially, and this is going to sound weird, but the sliding of certain glass panels will cause significant ear irritation to the point that I actually have to use medication or see a doctor. It wasn't like this before. That's been a sensitivity I've developed. My skin has certainly become more sensitive now. I use all types of supplements, potions and lotions, as they would say. A whole slew of natural supplements and expensive creams to keep my skin free from irritation. So it appears that every part of my body has become more sensitive overall. I've also become better at identifying how to take care of my body and to prevent certain things from happening. So that comes with age, knowledge and wisdom, hopefully. But certainly the body ages. My metabolism is not as good as before. During COVID, when I stayed indoors mostly for 2 years, I gained COVID weight. I think a lot of people gained COVID weight, but I certainly gained COVID weight, and I've actually had I've had difficulty losing that weight. I gained, I think, probably 20 to 30 pounds over that period, 2020, 2021, just as a result of not moving and being locked down and at home. So that's weight that I've struggled to lose since then. So certainly with age, a lot of middle-aged men get a bit heavier, get a little bit fatter. And I think I've grown a bit fatter. I used to be able to eat whatever, and the weight wouldn't go onto my body. It would just, I would eat and I would eat, and I could eat carbs and whatever, and my body would be able to digest and process all of this. And I stayed at a good lean, 145, 135, 145, about 20 years ago, and that was sort of my natural weight for the longest time. That all changed during the pandemic. I could certainly feel it. I'm finding more white hairs on my body. If I don't shave and I grow a bit of a beard, you can start to see the white hairs. I'm starting to see it in my hair. So that part of aging is not fun. Being middle-aged and having your body slowly erode in front of your eyes. The machine slowly collapsing. Right, everything goes towards entropy. Entropy is the rule of the universe. Everything goes towards entropy, from order to chaos, from control to lack of control, from stability to disorder. Your body does the same. So here I am, the prime example of entropy. But as my body has perhaps deteriorated, not to the extent that I'm not functional, but as my body has eroded, I believe my mind has, in fact, done the opposite. I feel smarter. I feel wiser. Certainly, I feel that I've, over the course of my life, gained a lot of knowledge, and that comes with age as well. I've had 40 years to accumulate knowledge, and I'm a pretty fast learner, so I've accumulated a lot of knowledge, and I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of just the knowledge that I've accumulated over the course of so many years. It makes me see the world differently, and with knowledge comes wisdom, and with wisdom, ideally, good judgment. That's ultimately, beyond winning your local game show and being able to show off your vocabulary, and that type of thing. Beyond that, what is knowledge good for, right? Knowledge is not just be able to show off at a game of Trivial Pursuit or Jeopardy. Knowledge should ideally lead to wisdom. That, the applied knowledge, right? Everything starts with information. Information leads to knowledge. Knowledge leads to wisdom. And I would say, what does wisdom lead to? Wisdom leads to judgment. Wisdom leads to good judgment in terms of how do you make decisions in life. Right, I think that's the most important asset, or derivative, if you will, of knowledge and wisdom is judgment and decision making. I believe that I'm a little bit better now at making good decisions in life. At least I've seen enough different types of situations to understand when I'm making a good decision, or when I'm about to make a not so good decision, or perhaps even a bad decision. That comes with age too. Just at the basis, it's just really pattern recognition, don't you think? It's just seeing enough situations, and knowing enough that you can make better decisions with your life. And I think that's what separates successful people in their middle age versus unsuccessful people. There are people who are doing drugs and on the street at their middle age, right? There are 40-year-olds who are literally all over the world lying on the street, homeless, in poverty, on drugs, in jail, right? Not necessarily the best decisions. So, decision making. I think that's something I'm very proud of. And there are things that you will learn, and things that you are taught. And we tend to remember the things that we learn more than the things we are taught, right? The things we are taught, that's imposed on you through school, for example, right? A lot of us, we don't remember much from the textbooks, the exams, right? That was just the product of the education system. The education system, in part, is just a mechanism by which we screen people in society. It just so we can determine who gets the best jobs and who the employers should hire, right? It's a very useful screening mechanism. It's cruel and often unfair, but society needs certain screening mechanisms. It requires that type of mechanism to distinguish those with certain skills and aptitude and merit from those who may lack those qualities. And that's important for members of society. Do you want your doctor to be someone who does not have the best skills and the best knowledge to diagnose you? Do you want your lawyer to be someone who does not have the best skills and the best knowledge to represent you in your case? So there is some wisdom and some logic to screening people out and not have everyone go to law school and not have everyone go to med school. Because as the end user, as the patient, or as the client, you, I would assume, want the best to serve you. So the education system, has its purpose, but part of the problem with the education system is a lot of information is imposed on you, right? It's taught. So, your exams and your textbooks, all this information that you're forced to memorize as part of this screening process. What's taught is easily forgotten, but what is learned through experience, right? Experiential learning is quite different. And experiential learning generally leads to more sustained memory and a more visceral integration of that knowledge. So they say if you learn how to ride a bike, you will always, in a way, know how to ride a bike. Or if you've learned a language and now you're re-immersed into that language, you can pick it up quite easily. So those are some examples. And I think with age, going back to age, with age, you're just better at knowing what you've learned, remembering what you've learned, and that really helps with decision making. And ideally that should propel you to greater amounts of success in your middle age, in all aspects of life, whether that's relationships, career, your day-to-day survival. All of this is important. What else happens with age? What else happens when you are middle-aged? Well, life starts to take things away from you. Yep. Life starts to take things away from you. People around you begin to die. All four of my grandparents have passed away, unfortunately. And they were wonderful people. All four of them were excellent, wonderful, loving people, and they're no longer with us. I've had friends who've passed away not so long ago. I had a friend in his late 30s, a very successful doctor, and an outstanding member of the community. He died of cancer in his late 30s, and he's a doctor. A very financially successful, a great friend, a loving husband, and he's no longer with us. I've had other friends throughout the course of my life who've passed away due to accidents, car accidents, for example, different illnesses, suicide. You lose people once you get older. People who are close to you. You begin to actually lose people. And you lose relationships too. Relationships with former friends, former co-workers, former lovers. Certain relationships just dissipate for various reasons. Some people, the relationship just it falls apart. Some people, with respect to some people, it's a breakup, right? In the sense of a romantic relationship, it could be a breakup where you just never talk to the person ever again. Certainly, I've experienced a number of breakups in my life, and they're not easy. I can tell you, they're extraordinarily difficult. Some of the hardest experiences I've ever been through in my life were breakups with romantic partners. Really gut-wrenching, hard, soul-sucking experiences, regardless of whether you were the person breaking up or broken up with. It doesn't matter if you instigated it or they're on the receiving end of a breakup, especially with long-term relationships. They're devastating, emotionally just terrible. Not to say there's not a light at the end of the tunnel and that you can obviously recover, but you lose people, right? You lose those relationships. You lose relationships with certain friends. I don't keep in touch with certain people anymore. I try my best to keep in touch with as many people as I can, but certain people move away. Other people are just no longer interested in hanging out with you for whatever reason. It may not have to do with you in some way. It may be just them. It's not your fault. It's not always you. Remember, it's not always you. It could be them, or it could be you. And if it's often you, then you should reflect on that. But you lose friends. You lose family members. You lose lovers. You start to lose people in middle age, and at a certain point, the pace of loss may actually outpace the pace of gain, right? Like you may end up at some point where you actually end up losing more people per year than new people that you meet and new friendships or new relationships that you form. And that comes with age. It's loss. And I think a large part of coming of age, if you will, or accepting age and aging is the acceptance of that type of loss, and the inevitability of profound loss. That comes with the territory. It's very painful, unfortunately. But with middle age, there are also really amazing things. I feel right now, mentally speaking, more liberated than I have ever been in my entire life. I feel at this point, my mind is free, truly free, and that's in part the result of a lot of hard work, introspection, reflection, working on my mental health, therapy, journaling, meditation, a combination of different things. But I feel free, and I feel, maybe not completely, but I feel quite self-actualized. You may remember Maslow's hierarchy. I'm sure you learned this in psychology. There's a pyramid, right? There's a pyramid at the base, and correct me if I'm wrong. I may be, misrepresenting a little bit, but at the base of the pyramid, you have very basic needs like security, not being killed, shelter, right? Having a roof over your head, food, water. Basic needs, and then you move up the pyramid, relationships, romance, right? These emotional needs, they're at the slightly upper rungs of the pyramid, and then afterwards, self-esteem and other spiritual, emotional items that are not your basic needs anymore, but they're your spiritual, emotional needs. And at the very top of the pyramid is self-actualization. The golden top of the pyramid is realizing your full potential. I've always loved Maslow's pyramid of needs, and I relate to it. I relate to it so much because self-actualization has always been a goal of mine in life. To reach my full potential. And reaching one's potential, it could mean different things for different people. It doesn't mean the same thing. So my version of self-actualization could be different from your version of self-actualization. For me, it's being free from, and this is my term, okay? This is my term. Psychic knots. What do I mean by that? Psychic knots. They're emotional entanglements in your head, right? Things, insecurities. Think about string, a knot. Right? It's a knot that prevents a string from being smooth. So I'm using this as an analogy, a psychic knot, a knot related to the psyche. These are, defense mechanisms, insecurities, barriers, emotional blocks that prevent you from being the person that you are meant to be. Whoever that is to you, right? You are going to self-actualize in a different way than I'm going to self-actualize. There's no set definition. But to realize your full potential as a human being, and that could mean anything to you. It's a personal, subjective definition. But for me, as part of this aging process and as part of being on this planet for the last 40 years and having experienced what I've experienced, I've traveled to approximately 60 different countries. I've started a business. I've had many relationships in my life. I've done a lot of things. I've gotten into a lot of trouble as well. I think all of this eventually has contributed to a sense of self-understanding. And it's important to relieve yourself of those barriers, the fears, the anxieties, or whatever is holding you back. And it's hard, honestly. It's hard. I mean, age itself is not enough to relieve yourself, because a lot of these things relate to childhood trauma, early childhood experiences, patterns of behavior and patterns of thought that are deeply ingrained. You can't just snap your finger and for it to disappear. You have to put in a lot of work. And I'm proud to say I've put into a lot of work in myself in terms of my mental health, my mind. Mental health is an interesting word, right? Like the health of one's mind. But I've certainly put into myself a lot of investment in terms of understanding why I do what I do, why I behave the way I behave, and what is holding me back. And again, I don't think there's been a time in my life where I feel more free in my mind. And that's a wonderful feeling. I think the last time I felt this way, this level of freedom of thought, freedom of I don't know how you describe it, just absolute freedom of one's mind. I think the last time I felt this way was when I was 21. It was almost 20 years ago. It was my third year at McMaster University. I had just gotten into law school, so my future was secured to an extent. I was having the time of my life. This is going to sound really nerdy, but I was not just going to my own classes. I was going to other people's classes as well. I was purposely auditing other courses. So I would do my own classes, and then I would get bored and I would go to other classes. I would jump around. I would go to philosophy classes and history classes, and I would just go from lecture to lecture, sampling different lectures. I did that for several months. So on top of my own work, I was doing other people's work. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I had amazing roommates. That community is really important. I've to a large extent lost my close community, because now we live in an atomized world. We all live in our own little houses, and we don't have that physical proximity to people. So to that extent, not to say I don't have friends and I don't have parties and I don't, I like to see people quite often, but that close proximity of a tribe, of that tribal physical proximity, I felt that with my roommates. I had wonderful roommates, and they were great friends, and I really felt that connection. I'm not too sure if I will ever feel that level of connection again, because I don't think my living situation will ever, I'm not going to have roommates at this point in my life, right? Nor am I going to live with a bunch of friends under the same roof. I don't think I'm ever going to do that, and our societies are not formed for that. Who knows, maybe eventually I'll move into a senior's home and that level of community could be retraced. But certainly for the next couple of decades, I don't anticipate I will be able to experience that type of intimate level of tribal community with non-family members on a platonic level. That was really something special to be with really amazing, intelligent, interesting roommates. To have your sort of future secure, like you knew that you were going to law school and you got accepted, you didn't have to worry anymore. It was just a very good time, and I felt at that time, when I was 21, really self-actualized. That was the last time, 20 years ago, that I felt this level of inner peace, if you will. And 20 years later, I'm back. I'm proud to say I'm back. I'm proud to say, it took me 20 years because the last 20 years have been difficult. Right? It was not always easy. A lot of ups and downs, a lot. But I'm feeling the energy again. So I'm proud of myself. I truly am. I'm proud of myself. I'm feeling a sense of control over my own life, and a sense of mental clarity, which is just really amazing. On the practical side of things, with age, you certainly, it's anticipated, hopefully for most of us, that with age you have more resources. Right, so I certainly have a lot more resources now. I consider myself financially free. I don't worry about money. I have more than enough. I don't, worry about, a lot of the financial stressors that that people are stressed about, and that I think is that for me at least came with age and came with dedication and work and making good choices. So certainly more resources. I've become more worldly, I believe, in that my sense of the world, truly the world, because I've been to many places in the world now, and many places several times. And I've interacted with local people. I've studied abroad. I have a good sense, I think, of what the world looks like, and some of the trajectory and the patterns in the world, not just locally in one place. I'll give you just one example. There's an interesting pattern I discovered. Just where people move, right? In Canada and in the United States, a lot of people from Mexico and Latin American countries, they move up to the United States or Canada to find a better life for themselves. At one point, in the 90s especially, when Germany had a very high unemployment rate, they said that Germany had more unemployed people than the entire population of Switzerland. A lot of Germans moved to Switzerland to find work, to find a better life for themselves. Interesting pattern, right? In South Africa, people from Zimbabwe move into South Africa to find a better life for themselves. And I'm not saying these facts based on a book. I'm saying this based on my real lived experiences in terms of I've been to these countries, I've talked to people, and these are the stories that they tell me. This is not textbooks. This is just anecdotal life learning. In Colombia, people from Venezuela, they're moving to Colombia to find a better life for themselves. In places like Thailand, you have people from Cambodia or Laos moving into Thailand to find a better life for themselves, and people from Thailand are then going to other places to find a better or secure a better life for themselves. So it's just really fascinating. Yeah, it's just these patterns, right? And this is just one example of a global pattern. People from countries that perhaps are less wealthy or less developed moving to neighboring countries that are wealthier or more developed. And this is happening across the world, right? It's happening in North America, it's happening in South America, it's happening in Europe, it's happening in Asia. This is just one pattern in the world that I've seen, based on just my lived experience of just talking to people. And there's many other examples. But I like to say that I have a good sense of the world and a good sense of world history. There's a little experiment. It's meaningful for me. I like this little experiment. But when I go to museums, or not museums, but monuments, right? We're talking about like historic monuments, palaces in Europe. We're talking about like the pyramids in Mexico, right? The Mayan or the Aztec pyramids. These palaces in China, or the temples in Japan, or the Colosseum in Rome. When there are structures, I actually like to touch these structures with my hands, and I touch the structures, and then I close my eyes like this. And I reflect on the feeling, and I have that feeling of the stone or the wood. I have it sort of transmit through my hands, and when I do that, strangely, I can feel all of the other structures I've touched, the other monuments. I feel this connection between the a palace in Europe and a pyramid in Mexico, and a statue in China. And instantaneously, I remember, where I was when I touched the other statue, right? In Cambodia, Angkor Wat, right? The amazing religious compound with beautiful temples. Just touching some parts of those temples, and then the feeling of touch, it helps me relate to these other structures that are important in human history, built by amazing humans in the past. And I feel this connectivity between all civilizations. And in a way, I'm a conduit of that connectivity, of people in the past speaking to each other through me. I'm a medium for historic civilizations to communicate commonality. It's extraordinarily powerful. the sensation of touch and the connectivity that touch brings. It's a visceral feeling. Sight and sound are very powerful, but there's something about touch. Touch, I believe, was perhaps our first sense, right? Before we developed the ability to hear, the ability to see, smell, and taste. I think I would assume that the most simple organisms, they had to have the ability to touch their environment, to sense their surrounding environment. Because many organisms are blind and many organisms can't hear, but they have to be able to at least sense their environment around them, and that's essentially touch. It's a very powerful sensation. What else happens with age? Well, that's all that I can think of for now. I'm sure more happens with age. Certainly more opportunities, and more connections. I'm able to see certain connections now that, as a young person, I was not able to see. I think I'm a bit more astute and perhaps a bit better at creating opportunities for myself, or seeing where there are opportunities, different types of opportunities, right, for whatever I'm trying to achieve. I think with age as well, a sense of intent, at least for me, a feeling of this is what I want to achieve, and then the question is, how do you achieve that? Whether it's a health goal, a relationship goal, a career goal, setting goals and sticking to them. And it becomes a matter of how, right? One of the more interesting books I read, and this may be a controversial statement considering who wrote the book, but there was a book that really inspired me growing up. I read this, I think, in my late teens or early 20s. It was called Think Big, Kick Ass. And it was written by no other, probably not directly written, probably ghost written, but written by no other than Donald Trump. A great book. And in this book, this years before he became president, or became famous for The Apprentice. This was when he was still probably in his real estate days. In this book, he talked about thinking big. He talked about how if you don't think big, you can't achieve big things. That the prerequisite to achieving the biggest things in life is to first start with thinking the biggest possible things. Right? So if you want to make $1 million, you really want to visualize yourself making $1 billion, right? Put an extra 3 zeros behind that. It worked for him, right? He's president twice. Something worked out. Agree or disagree with his policies, but something worked out. There is certain wisdom to there is a certain wisdom to thinking big and kicking ass. I believe in that. I believe it's important to think big. To start small, right? You can start small. There's no harm in starting small and being realistic and tangible with your steps. Otherwise, you may not be able to achieve anything. But thinking big, I think it's very important to separate the imaginative, non-judgmental part of our mind from the pragmatic, judgmental part of our mind. Where when people have ideas, often the criticism is, well, that's not possible, or that's too hard, or that's too costly, or how can you ever achieve that? That's often the feedback that that you get when you come up with a new idea, or especially a new crazy idea. But I think it's important to have that, to have the pragmatic analysis of success, of of the budgeting, of how realistic this particular project or particular goal is. But I think it's very important also to separate that from the non-judgmental, imaginative exploration of whatever that goal is. This pure imaginative, non-judgmental, left brain versus right brain, if you will. And I think that's what we're missing. I think a lot of us are missing the imaginative part. One thing that I believe that I've managed to achieve, and certainly as of late, is to integrate my imaginative mind with the pragmatic mind. I've been practicing law for the last 15 years, and law is, I don't think it's a very creative profession. It's conservative, it's very pragmatic, it's legalistic, right? Lawyers. But going back to my comment about self-actualization, it's my belief that one of the reasons why I feel free in my mind, and one of the reasons I have now the ability to have that mental peace to a certain extent is because I've been able to integrate the imaginative, creative side with the more pragmatic side of myself. So, I mean, Carl Jung said that, right? To assimilate your archetypes, to accept all of the layers of yourself, to form the holistic self, to transcend. You have to accept all of yourself, including the shadow, which is the dark part of yourself. And you have to accept that, because I think it's important as well to understand your own desires, even if they're dark desires, to respect your desires, because you can only repress your desires for so long before they blow up on you. There's a poem which I haven't fully memorized, but it talks about what happens to desires deferred. It's a very simple poem. I'm paraphrasing it because I haven't memorized the whole thing, but it
today this happened. Do you remember last
it
month?
poses this rhetorical question: what happens to desires deferred? Right? Do they kind of like rot away? Do they wither? Do they flow? Do they just disappear and dissipate into the air? Do they smother you? What happens to these desires deferred? And at the end of the poem, it asks, or do they explode? Do they explode? Do they explode? Right? If you defer your desires, do they just one day do they explode? You know what I'm talking about. You know. So respect your desires, even the dark ones, even the ones that are maybe not socially acceptable. Respect. I'm not saying go and act on them immediately, recklessly, but respect your own desires. It's important to not subdue yourself. In A Short History of Progress, written by, I forgot the guy's name, but the book, Short History of Progress, this historian, he talks about how civilization is about the domestication of animals, but also the domestication of humans, domesticating ourselves, taking the wildness of ourselves and removing that and domesticating ourselves so we can live in a society, so we don't kill each other, so we don't assault each other and steal from each other, and do intimate things to each other without consent, right? we live in a society of structure, but that requires the wildification of the human soul. We've domesticated ourselves in the same way that we've domesticated animals and pets. It's a very apt point that we are a domesticated species. We've self-domesticated. But there is still that wildness in us. And it's important to respect the wildness, because that's what makes us fundamentally human. I don't think it's the domesticated part. That makes us functional in society. That makes society functional. You don't want to have a wild society where we rely on the rule of the jungle and one's own instincts and desires. That's not a society. But if you repress yourself too much, you lose the wildness, and the wildness is really essential. And I believe as well, it is essential to your own self-actualization. So maybe it is true. Maybe with age, I've become wiser. This is now what I believe. I imagine I would continue to believe these things that I say to you today. I wish you a beautiful journey as you age, as you learn, as you find yourself in new relationships, as you rekindle old relationships. I hope that you travel a lot. I hope that you gather lots of resources. I hope that you find happiness. And I hope that you are kind to those around you. This is Randy I, reporting from the beautiful city of Brisbane, Australia. Do not forget to like and subscribe if you like my content. And I will see all of you in the next video. Bye-bye.